The day we buried Nadia, it rained the way it only rains in November, not dramatically, not in sheets, but in a thin, relentless mist that soaked through everything slowly, the way grief does. The kind of rain that makes you feel the sky itself cannot commit to anything decisive, just as I could not commit to the idea that my sister was actually gone. I was 30, 4 years old, standing in our mother's living room in the hours after the burial, holding a glass of white wine I hadn't touched, accepting condolences from people whose faces blurred together. Nadia had been 31, an aneurysm. The doctor said it was the kind that gives no warning, no grace period. No chance for last words. She was here, and then she wasn't. And I, her older sister, the one who had always believed I knew her better than anyone alive, had no idea what was about to walk through the door. I was mid-conversation with our neighbor, Mrs. Elam, who was saying something kind about Nadia's garden, when I felt it, a light, deliberate tap on my shoulder. Not a comforting pat like the dozens I'd received that afternoon. A tap. Precise. Like a question someone had been rehearsing for a long time. I turned. A woman I had never seen stood there, perhaps 40, professional, carrying the careful, neutral expression of someone trained to deliver impossible things gently. Beside her, fingers loosely wrapped around the woman's hand, was a child, a girl, 7, maybe 8 years old, a coat slightly too large for her small frame, dark curly hair in 2 uneven pigtails, like someone had tried their best that morning but wasn't quite used to doing them yet. And then she looked up at me. Her eyes were dark brown, deep, set, with a particular stillness in them that hit me somewhere beneath language, beneath thought, somewhere purely physical, like a key turning in a lock I didn't know existed inside my chest. Because I had seen those eyes every day of my life for 31 years. I had watched those eyes cry over scraped knees and broken hearts in our father's funeral. I had watched them crinkle when she laughed too hard. They were Nadia's eyes. Exactly, impossibly Nadia's eyes, looking up at me from the face of a child I had never once been told existed. "Em's Maya Khalil," the woman said softly. "My name is Sandra O.C. I'm a social worker. I'm so sorry to do this today, of all days." She glanced down at the girl, then back at me. "This is Lily Nadia Khalil." A breath. "She is your sister's daughter." Behind me, Mrs. Elam was still talking about the garden. Somewhere across the room, someone laughed. The cat jumped off the sofa. The world kept moving, utterly indifferent, while I stood holding a glass of wine I had forgotten existed, staring at a little girl with my dead sister's eyes, and felt the ground beneath everything I thought I knew begin, very quietly, to give way. The social worker gave me 3 days before the questions had to become decisions. 3 days to process the existence of a child, a secret, a whole hidden chapter of my sister's life that she had apparently carried alone in silence for nearly 8 years. I spent the first night in Nadia's apartment with her spare key, which I had always kept on my ring without ever imagining I would use it like this. Not to water her plants while she was on holiday, but to search her home for evidence of a life she had hidden from me. It felt like a violation. It also felt necessary. I moved through her rooms slowly, touching things, looking for something I didn't have a name for yet. I found the journals in the bottom drawer of her wardrobe, beneath 2 folded sweaters that still held the faint smell of her perfume. 4 of them filled in her small, slanted handwriting. I sat on her bedroom floor and I read them all before sunrise. His name was Daniel Harrow. She had met him 8 years ago at a work event. He was a real estate developer, wealthy, polished, the kind of man who fills a room with the assumption that everyone in it is glad he arrived. Nadia had been briefly dazzled, then quickly frightened. The journals described a man who was charming until he wasn't, generous until he wanted something back, and when Nadia told him she was pregnant, his response had not been fear or tenderness or even anger. It had been a cold, measured threat. He had told her, in precise language she had written down word for word, that if she named him as the father, he would destroy her, her job, her reputation, her family, if necessary. He had the lawyers to do it. He had done it before. So Nadia had made an impossible choice. She could not raise Lily safely in his shadow, and she would not give him the satisfaction of a legal battle she might lose. She placed Lily quietly into foster care under a protected arrangement, under a lawyer's seal, with instructions that the truth be revealed only upon her death. She had spent 7 years building a private trust fund for Lily, small deposits, steadily, carefully, money that Daniel Harrow knew nothing about. And she had spent 7 years writing to a daughter she could not hold. The journals were full of it. Every birthday noted, every imagined milestone. Lily would be starting school this year. I wonder if she is brave. I think she is brave. She has to be. She came for me, and I am trying so hard to be brave too. I sat on Nadia's floor with those words in my hands and understood, for the first time, the weight my sister had carried. Not because she didn't trust me. The last entry made that unbearably clear. Maya would fight for her. Maya would burn the whole world down. That is exactly why I cannot tell her yet. I need Lily safe first. I need Daniel contained first. Then Maya can know. Then Maya can love her. She had been protecting us both, and she had run out of time before she could finish. He found out on a Tuesday. I don't know how. A leak from the court filing, a loose word from someone in the foster system. The particular way that powerful men always seem to develop a sixth sense for money they haven't yet taken. Whatever the source, Daniel Harrow's lawyers contacted the family court within 9 days of Nadia's burial, filing for full paternal custody of a child he had never once attempted to meet, a child whose existence he had spent 7 years pretending to know nothing about. The filing was elegant, professionally sorrowful. It described a father who had been tragically denied access to his daughter through circumstances beyond his control, a man now stepping forward with love and resources to provide the stable home this child deserved. It mentioned, almost as a footnote, that a trust fund existed in Lily's name and that as her legal guardian, he would of course be positioned to oversee its management. There it was. Not love. Administration. I had spent 10 years as a paralegal before leaving to care for our mother through her illness. I had read enough legal documents to recognize the architecture of a lie dressed in the language of compassion. I read that filing 3 times. Then I called Fatima Oze, no relation to the social worker, just the sharpest family law attorney in the city, a woman I had once watched reduce an opposing counsel to silence with a single question. She took the case the same afternoon. He has money, Fatima told me plainly at our first meeting. We have truth. In my experience, the question is always whether we can get the truth in front of the right people before his money builds a wall around it. So we built a different kind of wall. I gathered everything. The journals, the lawyer's sealed instructions, the foster records, 7 years of Nadia's careful financial deposits, and the names of 3 women who had worked with Daniel Harrow and had their own quiet stories to tell. I contacted a journalist named Priya Menon who had been circling Daniel's professional conduct for 2 years, waiting for something solid enough to print. Nadia's documented account, written in her own hand, was more than solid. It was a foundation. Daniel Harrow had spent years believing that silence meant surrender. He had mistaken my sister's protection for weakness, her patience for defeat. He had never once considered that she had been building a case from beyond whatever future she feared, or that she had a sister who had nothing left to lose and every reason to finish what Nadia had quietly, carefully started. He thought he had already won. That was his first mistake. Underestimating what a grieving woman with a paralegal's eye and a dead sister's journals is capable of. That was his last. The hearing was set for a Thursday morning in February, 6 weeks after Nadia's burial. The courtroom was small and fluorescent, lit, the kind of room that makes everything feel both too ordinary and too consequential at the same time. Daniel Harrow arrived with 2 attorneys and a suit that cost more than my monthly rent. He did not look at me. He did not look at Lily, who was not present. Children are spared these rooms when possible, but whose photograph sat in a folder on the judge's desk like a quiet accusation. Fatima was methodical and brilliant. She laid the foundation piece by piece, the timeline of Daniel's threat documented in Nadia's own handwriting, the sealed lawyer's instructions, prepared years in advance, naming me as Lily's intended guardian with a clarity that left no room for interpretation. The trust fund records, showing 7 years of a mother's devotion translated into deposits, none of which Daniel had contributed a single coin toward. The testimony of 2 women who had encountered Daniel's particular brand of control in professional settings and were no longer willing to stay quiet about it. Then Fatima called me to the stand. She asked me to read from Nadia's journal. I had rehearsed it. I had told myself I would hold together. I opened to the page she indicated, Lily's 5th birthday entry, and the moment I saw Nadia's handwriting, my rehearsal dissolved entirely. I read it anyway, voice breaking and rebuilding with every sentence. The courtroom was absolutely silent. Even Daniel's attorneys had stopped writing. That same morning, Priya Menon's article ran. Not a tabloid piece, a careful sourced, documented investigation into Daniel Harrow's pattern of coercion across 3 separate cases spanning a decade. By the time the judge recessed for deliberation, the article had been shared thousands of times. His wall, built from money and assumption, was coming down in public. The judge ruled before the end of the day. Full guardianship granted to me, the trust fund protected, its oversight assigned to an independent administrator until Lily came of age. Daniel Harrow was granted no access without a separate, supervised review process that his own attorneys clearly knew he would never pursue once the cameras were on him. He left the courtroom without a word. I watched him go and felt something I had not expected. Not triumph, exactly. Something quieter. The specific piece of a thing being made right. That evening I brought Lily to our mother's house for the first time. She walked through the rooms slowly, touching the walls, the furniture, the photographs on the hallway shelf. She stopped at one, Nadia at perhaps 20, laughing at something off camera, head thrown back, entirely herself. Lily stood there for a long time. Then she reached out and touched the edge of the frame very gently with one finger, the way you touch something you are afraid might disappear. She looks happy, Lily said quietly. She was, I told her. She really was. I put my arm around those small shoulders and felt the particular weight of a child leaning in, cautious at first, then fully, the way trust arrives when it finally decides to. Outside, the February cold pressed against the windows. Inside, our mother was warming something on the stove and pretending very hard not to be crying. Nadia had not left us nothing. She had left us each other. And she had trusted me, in the end, to be exactly what she always said I was, the one who would burn the whole world down, if that was what it took. I hadn't needed to burn anything. I had only needed to show up, tell the truth, and refuse to be quiet. That was enough. It was more than enough. It was everything she asked of me, written in the margins of 4 journals at the bottom of a wardrobe, waiting for me to find it. I found it, Nadia. I found her. She's home.